Dr. Syed Haider tweeted out, "Describe people incessantly asking you to describe things in one word. In one word." That tweet reminded me of something weird. When Jimmy Carter was leaving office in 1980, they asked him what some of the highlights were in his presidency. He gave an enigmatic answer saying that one of the strangest things were military psychics who appeared to have amazing hits. What he was referring to was the Stargate project staffed with military remote viewers. A remote viewer isn't given the target he's supposed to see. He's only given a number from a random number generator. Armed with only that, he's trained to clear his mind and describe what impressions he gets. Remote viewing is interesting because the viewer is not tasked with saying what the ultimate target is. He just gives the details of the target, and a case officer has to put these details together and figure out what the gestalt is. A gestalt is the fancy German word for the overall concept. So for instance, when Upton Sinclair did experiments with his wife, as recorded in his book Mental Radio, he would have a target drawing in a sealed envelope, and she was tasked with giving him her impressions of it. A clock that he would draw, for instance, would come out on her end as a circle with radial lines. A bow and arrow would be an arc with a line. A swastika would be right angles out of context. An American flag would just be a stick with a ball and some parallel lines. She had no idea what the overall gestalt was. She was just getting adjectives without ever quite understanding what the main noun was. 100 years later, this is still largely how remote viewing works, as you can see here.
Looking at objects is important, and this is probably the most important thing that a beginning remote viewer needs to do. And it's really short, so you can just easily make it into a poster for your wall. It's describe, don't name. It's like, here's a pen. I immediately identify it as a pen. Try not doing that for a while. Try not using nouns. You know, it's hard. It's kind of long. It's cylindrical. It's hollow. Tell that it's hollow. If I got into it a little bit, I could be like, there's some stuff down the middle. It could be that I'm working a target in remote viewing that is a pen. It could be that I'm working a target in my remote viewing that is a subway car or a subway tunnel. Those descriptors are all still accurate. The second I'm like, it's a pen, everything that I say after that point is pen stuff.
Now, why am I telling you this? I'm doing it as a metaphor for how the elites attack something without telling you that they're attacking it. They never describe the noun. They only attack the accompanying adjectives. They don't want to alarm people by proclaiming their actual target, thus possibly drawing an immunological response. Instead, they create an attribute chart of the target, a word cloud, and go after the attributes. For instance, when they wanted to close down factories in America in the 1970s, they didn't tell people that they wanted to close down factories. Instead, what they did was pass new environmental legislation to go after sulfur dioxide. They knew that by going after sulfur dioxide, it was a backdoor method to shut down the factories. Likewise with the new method to go after carbon. In McGeorge Bundy's book, A Time to Choose, America's Energy Future, written in 1974, he openly links industrial production to carbon emissions. So a good way to ban factories in a stealth fashion was to frame it as banning carbon as well as sulfur dioxide. These were circles in the larger word cloud around the noun, factories. Likewise with the war on the host population. They don't say we want to ban Western European Christians. Instead, they don't attack the noun, but they attack the adjectives describing the noun, like how the Smithsonian Institution's chart of attributes linked to dreaded white supremacy, as seen in their chart, aspects and assumptions of white culture. There we find out that the attributes of whiteness are rugged individualism, family structure, emphasis on scientific method, Protestant work ethic, etc. Byron York tweeted, "The National Museum of African American History and Culture wants to make you aware of certain signs of whiteness: individualism, hard work, objectivity, nuclear family, progress, respect for authority, delayed gratification, and more." By waging war on these, you essentially wage war on, well, your target population. Note how they're doing it in climate change propaganda. If your end goal is exterminating 90% of the Earth's population, you don't admit that. You say that you're going after breathing. The carbon dioxide that people are emitting during respiration is your enemy. By targeting the carbon, you of necessity strangle off the people. You act obliquely, like in house training a puppy. You hit it with a newspaper so that when it soils the carpet, it associates the abuse with the newspaper and not with you. The elites love non-attribution when waging war against populations. It minimizes blowback and accountability. And what is power if you have to have accountability with it? Word cloud warfare against the middle class is reframed as a war against white supremacy, since the middle class happens to have a white plurality. It's part of the word cloud. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. If whites are oppressors and working class people are white, then the working class equals oppressors. So their war on whiteness is actually a disguised war on the working class, to dehumanize them as they siphon out their wealth, as Michael Hudson explains.
I had written the book thinking that socialists in third world countries would do something about it, and indeed it was translated into Spanish and other languages. But it was really the Defense Department that applied most of this, and I was amazed when I was invited to the White House to explain how imperialism worked. And my boss said, "We've run rings around the British imperialists. This is how to do it. You make them owe the debts in your currency, not their own. You control their central bank and make them financially dependent on you, and then you've got a stranglehold for them." So certainly the third world countries should cancel the debts under the odious debt principle. I haven't been able to convince any of them to do it because they said if we do that, the CIA will kill us. So how do you break that cycle?
There's also something we're suffering from in Africa, the devaluation of currency as a way of keeping us dependent continuously.
That's a good point. When a country devalues a currency, what are they devaluing? Well, there's a world price for grain, a world price for aluminum, a world price for raw materials. The only thing that they can really devalue is the price of their labor. So when Africa or Latin America or Greece is told to, or America is told to devalue the currency, what that means is pay labor less. You have to squeeze out more to pay the top of the economic pyramid, to suck it all up to the top 10% or 1% or 0.1%. So devaluation is basically an anti-labor policy to prevent a domestic market and prosperity from developing.
A way to get the working class from uniting and fighting to resist this is by discouraging masculinity and strength, stigmatizing it as toxic masculinity or ableism. As seen in the article, tragedy might be triggering. British universities add warnings for Greek and Shakespearean plays. In it, we read, "The University of Aberdeen in Scotland put a trigger warning on Beowulf due to its depictions of animal cruelty and ableism. Beowulf had to fear a creature of darkness, exiled from happiness and accursed of God, the destroyer and devourer of our humankind." However, Aberdeen students have added the fear that they might run across depictions from 975 which place value on people's bodies and minds based on societally constructed ideas of normality, intelligence, excellence, desirability, and productivity. Ooh, we don't want any of that normality, excellence, intelligence, or productivity now, would we? That would be toxic masculinity. And we know that by attacking these adjectives in the word cloud around the noun, ultimately, we can eradicate the noun. If you like what you're hearing in my show, be sure to check out one of the New American's other great shows, Behind the Deep State, hosted by Alex Newman. In this show, Alex exposes the shady characters, organizations, and agendas that the elites don't want you to know about. Check it out on thenewamerican.com.